Hello, and welcome to the Three Links Oddcast, your podcast for all things having to do with Odd Fellowship. And now, here are your hosts. Welcome, everybody. This is the Three Links Oddcast. I am one of your hosts, Toby Hansen.
I'm one of your other hosts, Ainslie, and we are here with one of our other special co-hosts, Christopher McHale.
I'm batting cleanup and always happy to do so.
Excellent. Welcome, Brother Christopher. Sergio is still out on sabbatical, so we've got Christopher McHale, very happy to be filling in for him tonight. And speaking of which, we have much gratitude for our sponsor, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. They produce wonderful soaps, bath bombs, and other things to make you smell nice and be clean. So be sure and look up our sponsor, Pig and a Pug. We'll get a little extended word from them later in the show. But right now, I want to introduce two very special guests who are joining us from beautiful Wyoming. Those are Brother Bradyn Harvey and Brother Gage Mazer, who've just chartered a new lodge in Wyoming. Welcome, brothers.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yes, great to have you here on the podcast. So, for a little bit of background, most of our listeners tend to be in urban metropolitan areas. We got a lot of listeners in the Dallas area, a lot in Chicago, a lot around New York City, San Francisco, Victoria, BC. But you guys are out in the middle of nowhere. You're in Wyoming, which is a jurisdiction that before you came along had what, 7 lodges?
Yeah, I think there's seven active lodges.
Okay, so how did someone who is in otherwise a fairly rural state find their way to Odd Fellowship?
So I actually was doing some research. I have a project I call Wyoming at War, where I research veterans. And I was researching a man that was he was in the top 10 people to settle Wyoming, first 10. And he was an Odd Fellow, and I'm like, well, he was a Mason and an Odd Fellow and a modern woodsman. And I'm like, well, I've heard of most of them, but what in the world's an Odd Fellow? So I started looking, and of course, after I know the signs, then I start seeing buildings around and gravestones and yeah. So I went from there, did a bunch of research, going on the website, and I actually tried to join a lodge for about 2 years before I got a hold of anybody. And I just so happened to work with a guy in the oil field. I was 200 miles from my house and he was 200 miles from his house, and we happened to work on the same location. And yeah, so went from there and got talking to him, and we joined the lodge that's about 60 miles away from us to get our degrees and get I guess acquainted with Oddfellows and have built from there.
So to circle back to something you mentioned, that you were doing some research on a gentleman. What was the name of that gentleman you were researching that was an Odd Fellow as well as a member of all the other major fraternal groups?
His name is General George Sliney. He was in the 5th Cavalry during the Indian Wars.
Sliney. Now, how do you spell that?
Sliney.
Just like it sounds.
Yep.
Okay, because if you're not listening carefully, it sounds like slimy, and I'm thinking George Slimy. That's a very strange name, but it's Sliney with an N.
With an N, yeah.
With an N.
He was
okay.
the lodge treasurer with a name like that.
Yeah, that's a trustee name right there. Okay, so you found out about Odd Fellowship reading about George Sliney, and what kind of time period was he in? What era would this be in history when he was coming to Wyoming and doing all of these things?
So he came to Wyoming in 1868 with the cavalry, the United States Cavalry, and he came out here, and they kept moving him all over the place. So he left the Army and joined the Wyoming National Guard. So he lived in Thermopolis from 1860s to I think 2020 or 1922.
Imagine
wow.
that.
So he really planted some roots there in Thermopolis.
Yeah, he basically built the town and the county single-handedly. So
Is he buried there by chance?
he is, yeah, and he's one of the oldest gravestones. He's dead center of the cemetery here.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you found out about Odd Fellowship researching George Sliney, and you're looking around going, Odd Fellowship, what is that? And because we on this podcast have a vested interest in finding out, what were the resources that you, as someone who was outside of the order at that time, looked at to try and get information about Odd Fellowship?
So I went to the website first. Well, first I just Googled Oddfellow, and it took me to the Oddfellow website.
Woohoo.
And I went through the jurisdictions and tried to get a hold of our grand secretary, and wasn't having much luck. And then I went to work in Douglas, Wyoming, and they have a really cool, there's some pretty cool Oddfellow stuff there. And right on Main Street, there's a big sign that says Oddfellow Building. So I stopped in there, and it's now a museum. So I went through the museum and seen if any of them had a contact. Well, it is a museum for a World War II prisoner of war camp. It had German and Italian prisoner of war. So they didn't really have anything on the Oddfellows. So I went to some other museums around and asked just if they had any idea on anything about Oddfellows, and none of them did. And I just so happened to work with that guy. And so he was actually my boss. He was directing me where to take my truck. And about 3 months later, he posted on Facebook, "Come down to the Oddfellows sleigh ride." And I said, "Hey, you know the Oddfellows, could you get me a contact?" And he said, "Actually, I'm the past Noble Grant." So
Nice. So why don't you give a quick name drop of that brother so we could give him a little bit of recognition for getting you.
Yeah, his name's Steve Masters. He's a member of Riverton Lodge 44, and they kind of adopted all of us. We had 6 of us from Thermop going over there, so they're our OG lodge.
Nice. It's good to have a mentor lodge to help. Definitely.
Yep.
So when you were researching Oddfellows, obviously this is a loaded question because I'm the one who made the website. So are there anything that you found that was intriguing or helped draw you in more, or were there things that you found lacking that I could actually make better on the website, or things like, as far as content out on the internet? Obviously we're not as out there as the other major fraternal organization, but we've definitely been making a huge effort in the last handful of years to have more resources available. So as far as your initial search on the internet, do you feel like, what would you have liked to have seen different or more of to maybe have helped you a little bit along the way versus the old fashioned treasure hunt you had to go on?
Well, I found it very helpful. I read basically every page on the website multiple times. I guess the one thing I was looking for more is books. And I know you have the primer coming out, and I got that was about the time that Louis Blake's book came out. I got it right away, like the day it dropped. So that was a big help. But yeah, other than that, it was just reading material was all I was looking for. And then when you get into Google and reading material, you come up with the fringe blogs and yeah.
One of our favorite conspiracy theories on this particular podcast is about the Denver airport. And you've probably flown through that airport, and you've probably heard that one of the conspiracies is that the Masons International World Headquarters for their whole world dominating conspiracy is underneath the Denver airport. Now, I've flown through the Denver airport before. I never saw it. I kept looking around for secret symbols or things like that, but I could never find any evidence of that.
Well, it's because they replaced that iconic carpet. And so I think that's what happened.
Ah, okay.
It's underneath the Sbarro and the Orange Julius.
Oh,
I don't want to contribute to the conspiracy, but if you start stomping around looking for underground caves, they start asking questions.
oh. So you looked on the website, you got the books, you found as much information as you could about the Oddfellows. And that brings up one thing that I just thought of here, which is for anybody out there who is an Oddfellow and belongs to a lodge and is listening to this podcast, it sounds like what you did is you tried to contact museums in your area to get any information about the Oddfellows. So listeners, if you're part of a lodge, make sure you send a letter to all of your local historical societies, museums, things like that. Introduce yourselves so that if someone else is out there looking to find the Oddfellows and they contact a museum, they can find your lodge.
Or even better, get the museum directors to join your lodge. So we have 2 in our lodge. So I'm very proud to say.
So that's a little tidbit out there for all of you Oddfellows during the pandemic. You're like, oh, we're not doing anything. We're not meeting. Sit down and start writing letters to all the local museums and historical societies, introducing your lodge so they know where to find you.
It's pretty funny too. Some of the museums haven't heard of the Oddfellows, and then you ask about it and they start looking and they uncover all kinds of cool stuff in their storage sheds they didn't even know they had.
Yes. So at that point, you had to find somebody who was a member to be able to join. But previous to that, you had tried the contact information on the website, correct?
Yeah. I tried emailing, I think there's 3 or 4 different emails on there, and tried emailing all of them.
And you never heard from any of those emails that you sent out?
No, not until after I joined.
And then after you joined, did you get responses from those same email addresses?
Yeah, there was actually quite a few of them that were helpful after joining. After joining, yeah.
Okay, because another theme that runs through this podcast is lack of response from Grand Secretaries in square Rocky Mountain states. Now, we don't want to name any names. But that can be an impediment because, Brother Ainslie, I think you can talk more about this. You get inquiries from the international website, the IOOF.org, and then you have to refer those to the Grand Secretaries in jurisdictions, correct?
Yeah, I'm basically like the calling board or the calling center person of emails. And so I get the emails off the contact list or the contact form. And from there, I have to kind of slot it out to whoever it needs to go to. So I have my stock replies that are, oh, if you're going to look to rent a lodge hall, I need to know where you're at so I could get you who you need to get to. Or a lot of it's genealogy stuff. And I point them to the Grand Lodges to that. Or the member inquiries, of course, I have to send them to the Grand Lodges as well. And I hate it when a month or so go by and then I'll get a follow-up email and it's always the same. Hey, I sent an email off and I never heard back. Is there anybody else you could send me to? Or it's usually that like they want to keep trying, or it's the other tone, which is a little bit nastier. And it's, you guys really need to get your bleep together if you're trying to get new members. No wonder you're dying off because you're not answering emails. And so, yeah, if anybody out there is listening and they happen to be a Grand Secretary, scribe, or anything like that, please, please, please respond to member inquiries. It might be the magic person that might save your lodges that are closing.
Or you never know, it could be the person who starts a new lodge in the middle of Wyoming. You never know.
Exactly.
It could happen. Maybe there's somebody listening to this podcast in, I don't know, maybe Spanish Fork, Utah. And they're like, I've got 9 friends and we'd like to form an OddFellows Lodge. We need to be able to direct them to somebody in their home state who can help them make that happen. So that is our recurring plea to those listening. If you are a jurisdictional officer, please check your email and respond in a timely manner. That brings us to the point you talked to your boss, who was an odd fellow, and he got you into the lodge down in Riverton. And from your perspective, what was it like to be a newcomer and join the Odd Fellows? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, well, after the search I went on, I was very excited about being a member. Yeah, after I learned that he was a member, he came down and we met, I think that week. I took some friends and met with him and got our applications in, and the process was relatively quick because they're excited to have members too. So as far as our interviews and our applications, that all went pretty fast, and they were pretty excited to have some help out with some stuff. That was February 2020, so you can you can see where that went.
Right on the edge of the cliff.
Perfect time.
Yeah. That was we had all kinds of plans and exciting, and here we go. We got new people, and we can do this, we could do that, and then Corona hit and it died real quick. But it was awesome being in the lodge. Even just being in the lodge, I was excited to see the pictures on the walls and the books in the cabinets, and so it was cool.
Nice.
So you kind of hit on how it was for you with that new excitement that we've all felt joining a lodge. How would you say that you were received?
We were very well received, I think. So in our interviews, they were asking kind of what our passion with the community is. So we all had our various things, and I ran for mayor in Thermopolis, and I've ran for town council and some other boards, and so I had a pretty good I guess a good resume for community work. So they were pretty excited to pick my brain for ideas for community involvement in the lodge, and
so you definitely seem like a doer. So which is exactly what this organization needs, are people who are doers. So that is fantastic that the members immediately recognize that potential and have supported it, as opposed to getting immediately scared and defensive of anything that you wanted to bring up. So that's fantastic to hear that you were embraced, as opposed to kind of held at arm's length until the trust was kind of built up.
Oh yeah, and they didn't feel threatened by us at all. I know that's a big deal in some lodges. The new guys come in, want to change everything, and so that working with Steve, he kind of knew that I was hardworking and excited and trustworthy, and so that was a good foot in the door.
And so you got you and a bunch of guys went and got initiated in the one lodge and took your degrees and everything there. So from that point, what was the process of getting the lodge started in Thermopolis again?
So I actually used the website for that. I got the petition for charter.
Nice.
And I emailed it to the secretary website, the grand secretary email from the website, and heard back from him, and just kind of went from there, started doing paperwork. And my mom's an accountant, so that made the process with the state secretary go pretty easy. And so basically it was just paperwork, and we had to get the 5 members. We wanted to start with a little bit more than that so we could still have a quorum, and we weren't starting out slow. So we ended up with 6. We got 6 members from Thermopolis, and we got all of us on our petition for a charter and went from there.
What was it like having your first meeting in the lodge that you chartered, basically with your own blood, sweat, and tears? Hopefully not literal blood, sweat, and tears.
Or if it is literal, at least you wiped the place down afterward.
Yeah.
So obviously we don't have a building yet. That's something me and Gage have been we've been looking at all the buildings downtown that have been abandoned our whole life. So we've been,
Sure.
yeah. So we've been looking at kind of them
That'll
buildings.
go great with Odd Fellowship. any rundown building will do.
So
That's right. It really only takes 2 elements to get a lodge going. You need an old building and a tattoo shop downstairs.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
We actually January of 2020 we opened a bakery in one of the historic buildings downtown. So we were remodeling it through 2019. So that's kind of where we've been meeting. So it's pretty cool. We still have an old historic building. It's just not an Oddfellow Lodge.
I bet
Yeah.
it smells good at least.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plus, here's the great thing. There have been many lodge halls where the lodge has gone defunct and they've turned into bakeries. You could be the first one where a bakery turned into an Oddfellows Lodge. Now, I'm thinking of Rocky Mountain number 5 in Salmon, Idaho, and how it's now the most popular bakery in Salmon, Idaho, but it's no longer a lodge. So you guys could reverse the trend and turn your bakery into a lodge hall, which I think is an excellent idea because scones and Odd Fellowship, they go pretty well.
That's right. Yeah, we got a pretty good incentive to join. We got fresh coffee and great pastries. So
And you
Yeah.
could definitely have a sponsored bake sale to raise money too.
that's right.
So
Do
I
you,
see...
oh,
No, go ahead,
Okay.
Ainsley.
I was gonna say, do you know if the original lodge hall is still standing in your town, or has it been taken over or torn down or anything?
So that was one of the buildings we've actually been looking at. So it's an empty lot now. It burned down. When it was still a lodge, actually, it burned down. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and they moved it a few blocks over. So it's the original lot is only 4 or 5 lots down from our bakery, and they moved it to the upstairs of a church a couple blocks away, and it was there until the 80s, and then the church moved, and the Oddfellow Lodge closed down in the 80s, and then recently the county bought the building and tore the church down to build a annex building for the county. So, but the church actually had the IOOF and the 3 links painted on the side of it, and
Oh wow.
so
That's cool.
yeah. So when I asked around town to figure out where the old lodge was, they said, "Well, I think I remember a church with IOOF painted across the top of it."
Wow.
100 feet.
Yeah.
Or 100 fools, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, that's what everybody thinks it stands for. Oh, 100 feet. What's that?
So the empty lot is on the south side of the main street, and on the east side of the main street, it's on the main intersection.
Okay.
Okay.
So George Sliney actually started a bank in Thermop, and the original bank is still standing. It says Wyoming Trust Company across the top of it.
Nice.
So we were trying to get a building. Obviously, there's 4 buildings on that intersection.
Mhm.
One burned down, one's the bank, one's a park because it also burned down.
we have one of those too. Yeah.
And the fourth,
When you get your lodge up and running, the first thing that you've got to invest in is some bloody fire extinguishers.
that's right. And the fourth building is a real estate real estate agency in there, and the upstairs is abandoned. All the upstairs of the main strip are, nobody uses the upstairs for anything. So we actually talked to them about opening a lodge because we could see the original lodge across the street one way and the namesake's bank across the other way. So it'd be a great place for it. But the owners aren't wanting to renovate anything up there yet. So
Yeah, I can understand that. You know, it can be a challenge, especially when you're dealing with old historic buildings. As you know, having renovated the bakery space, you never know what kind of stuff you're going to uncover, and then it gets expensive and fussy to do all of the work, just tearing stuff out and rebuilding and bringing it up to code. So I can understand there's a certain degree of reluctance there. So I got a question for you. We've got Brother Gage Mazer here, who hasn't really said anything yet. Brother Gage, at what point did you get involved in all of this Odd Fellowship?
So luckily, I didn't have to go through as much research as Bradyn did.
Okay, you let him do all the work for you.
Yeah.
Work smart, not hard.
Exactly. So Bradyn and I have known each other pretty much our whole lives. And so one day he had just got a hold of me and said, would you be interested in joining an Oddfellow or the Oddfellows? And, a lot of people are going to ask you, well, what is that? We've never heard of it. And so I asked him, and I was like, yeah, I'll roll it around. I'll do some research and see what it's all about. And so I was raised on a 5-acre farm north of Thermop, and was raised to just help everybody out all the time, and be a good Samaritan, be a good person, and love everybody and be a good friend to people. And so I had started doing research on the Oddfellows, and that's basically exactly what their motto is and whatnot. And so I had been in 4-H and FFA for pretty much my whole life, and that was a big help. They were always doing community-based things, and so Bradyn and I have been through all of that pretty much our entire lives with 4-H and FFA. He was always showing animals, and I was showing animals during fair and whatnot. And so I said, yeah, let me get an application. I'll gladly. And so he brought over an application and filled it out. And from there on, I joined the Riverton Lodge. And like Bradyn was saying, we got enough people to start our own lodge here. And so that was a big help having me as one of the members, because you needed that member amount to get the lodge started and whatnot. And so that was pretty much that. My dad was also in Elks. He was in Elks for the lodge here in Thermopolis. And a lot of their values are pretty much the same, help everybody out. And one of their other things is also to help raise children in need and whatnot. And so it was really nice. Sadly, the Elks kind of folded here in Thermopolis, so I didn't get a chance to join with him. But yeah, so Bradyn pretty much did all the hard work for me. I was just the right-hand man for him.
It's okay. Everybody needs, a couple of hands to help, though.
Exactly.
It's that bundle of sticks. Can't do it alone. It's no matter how much energy you have. So Bradyn, did you have the idea first to get the lodge in Thermopolis going again before you joined, or did you join kind of thinking maybe I'll do this, but maybe I'm not? And once you made that decision, was it did you get members on the front end before you approached somebody about it, or did you kind of start the process and then have to accumulate the people? That was 5 questions in one. I'm so sorry.
So I'm a huge fan of history. That's why the first place I went was the museums. But so I learned that there was a lodge here and that it kind of left, and the whole community is really trying. We got 3,500 people. So basically everybody in town, we have a hoedown once a week and try to figure out how to grow the town. So that was my,
that's actually really awesome.
We actually were, I trying to figure out something to bring to Thermop that it used to have. So I kind of went into it wanting to open the Thermopolis Lodge. And after joining Riverton, we kind of picked up some friends along the way. I talked my wife into it. Then Gage and his girlfriend, and then I just did a Facebook post, said, hey, here's what's going on. We need some more people. And we picked up a couple that way. And
nice.
My buddy John joined when I joined. So we kind of just picked up as we went, but we kind of knew from the whole thing, the whole time we'd pitch Oddfellows to friends and then say, and we eventually want to have our own lodge. So as they joined, they kind of knew that it was going to be a lot of work for them. So, and Riverton Lodge too. We didn't want them to feel like we were going to use them for our degrees and then abandon them. So we all have agreed to be associate members of them and help them out. And they're going to be, some of them will be associate members of ours and help us out. So it helped going in to know from the beginning that we were going to start our own. Both lodges. No, there was no hurt feelings or anything that way. It's not like we got our 6 members and then stopped attending Riverton Lodge.
Yeah.
So
snuck off in the night and started your own.
Yeah.
Haha.
Raid the regalia closet. Raid the regalia closet and never come back.
So how many meetings have you guys had as like how long ago? So you got the lodge chartered right before COVID hit, right?
So no, we actually got it chartered about a month ago.
Oh, it's like new.
Mhm.
New, yeah. We just
it's still shiny.
It's yeah.
Still has that new lodge smell.
Or bakery smell.
We had our officer initiation 2 days ago. So, or our
Nice.
officer installation.
Installation.
Yep. So we're very new.
So for your chartering process, how did they do the chartering ceremony? Since you didn't, since you didn't have a physical traditional, I don't want to say physical, but a traditional lodge, that's big air quotes there. And also, with the COVID stuff going on as well, like, was there any issues you guys faced, or do you feel like did everybody kind of seem like it was kind of the same deal as normal?
So, well, I haven't been around in a normal one, so I guess I don't know how that works.
True.
But
Yeah.
So we basically got an email saying that we could meet, and then June is our Grand Lodge, and they said that we'll do the actual ceremony then. So
Okay.
they basically just said, here you go ahead, you can get your officers and start working and get paperwork filed and that kind of stuff. And then when we do our Grand Lodge in June, we'll do
So you're kind of operating under a dispensation from the Grand Lodge, and then it'll be official whenever they have the Grand Lodge session. Got it.
Yeah. And I met with the Wyoming Grand Master. He actually just had to close a lodge in Cody, Wyoming.
Oh no.
So
It's a shame.
Well, yeah, Cody and Powell are pretty close. Well, Wyoming terms, they're pretty close together. They're only 30 miles apart. So they just kind of consolidated. So he has some storage sheds, and he said, come up and meet, and we can go through storage sheds and figure out what you need. And he actually has the original Canton charter hanging in their lodge. So that's really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That definitely will probably put a fire under you to get that back.
Yeah.
Now
That's fantastic.
It's interesting to me the way you approached getting a group together and starting a new lodge. Because a couple episodes ago, we talked to Brother Nick Curry, who just started a lodge in Chesterfield, Virginia. And he already had a group of people in mind that he'd been working with and doing things with. So he kind of had a pre-made proto-lodge ready to go. But it sounds like you got the idea for starting a lodge first. You found out about Odd Fellowship, you got involved, you joined Riverton, and you got some people in town that you knew and got it started, which is an interesting and different approach to starting a lodge. If you were to go back and change anything about the process of how you got this lodge started, what would you change and why?
That's a good question. So really how we found people to join is it is a small town. So we're all in the same thing. Like Gage said, we were in 4-H and FFA and together, and we basically everybody here works in the oil field or has worked in the oil field. So that was pretty easy. We talk with coworkers, and so it's kind of so it's like the old days, which I really like, being a fan of history, where George Sliney was a member of every fraternal order, which everybody was a member of every fraternal order. So you basically just put on a different regalia and sat in the same room with the same people. So
I knew everyone.
You work your way down the block and then up the other side of the block by the end of the week.
That's right.
right, yeah, they had a meeting every day of the week, just at a different place. So
Yeah.
and so that was kind of an advantage we had. We're all involved in stuff already together. So we just kind of said, well, let's do this. And that was basically how we got our 6 people together.
Nice.
As far as starting it, I'm not sure, other than getting contacts easier, which that's another one of the downfalls of Wyoming too, is, I mean, the next closest town, we have Orland's 30 miles away, Riverton's 60 miles away. So even during the winter, you can't get anywhere. It's not like you can't just shoot down to the neighboring town. You gotta make sure your family knows where you're headed, and you might get stuck for 3 or 4 days. So it's quite the process. And that was another reason why we wanted our own too, is that travel, it's hard to travel.
Gotcha.
So, being that it's difficult for you to travel within Wyoming, what is it that you guys are bringing to the town that you are based in at the moment?
Just the community stuff. So we kind of talked about our lodge, and kind of one of my passions has been helping the kids. We've been wanting to, me and my brother have been trying to plan some stuff just to help out with budget cuts in the school. And we were rabble rousers when we were kids, all of us, because there's nothing to do. So we were like, well, it'd be nice to have something for kids to do and stuff like that. So that's kind of what my focus for the lodge is. And we kind of, in our few meetings that we have had our ideas for events and community relation are all kind of based around the kids of Thermopolis. So there's actually a kid in Basin, Wyoming. His name's Jack. He started Jack's Box, which is like the mini pantries that have been popping up. So I messaged his Facebook page and said, hey, our Oddfellow Lodge is interested in doing a Jack's Box. Is it okay if we kind of tie the two together? We want something good for the Oddfellow Lodge, but we want to help him too. And it's his mom that runs the Facebook page. He's 9 years old. So she said he would love that. I'll let him know. And I asked kind of what requirements they would want from us, because we want to obviously meet their expectations. And they said basically provide food, no questions asked. And we're like, well, easy enough. And that's something that the Oddfellows can do easy. So that's kind of what we're focusing on, the children of the community, because it's a very underreached area of our town, I think.
Now, here's an idea. Have you thought about chartering a junior lodge yet?
Yes and no. So hey,
we've already got them sold on the Canton. Let's not overwhelm them already.
Well, a junior lodge in a business after hours is kind of that's something we're gonna have to face, where we got just having a bunch of children in a business is kind of hard to do. So
well, it can be challenging, but if you're looking for something that will be a good organization for kids in the community, junior lodge and Theta Rho clubs are really great for that. Now, I say my daughter came up through Theta Rho, and she's now Noble Grand of our lodge. So I have seen firsthand the benefit of taking a bunch of squirrely teenage girls and making them slow down and follow a ritual and learn an order of business, learn how to keep books, learn how to take minutes, and learn how to run an organization. It is amazing learning for them. But the thing is, you got to get your lodge up and running and really strong first. You know, it
Right.
usually takes about a minimum of about 15 people, so that you've always got somebody there as a backup. Once you get that going, then junior branches of Odd Fellowship are a great idea, because if you could find 10 young boys ages, I think it's 8 to 18, you can form a junior lodge out of that. They get a couple of advisors up there, and you teach them how to be Oddfellows at the junior level. It's a great learning experience. Plus, it provides these young, interested people with their first experience in Odd Fellowship.
And I think that's be one of my interests, because like right now we learned all of our Robert's rules and how to take minutes and all that stuff from 4-H and FFA.
Yep.
And that isn't really for everybody. And I think it's kind of suffering as much as fraternal orders are right now. So I think that is it'd be good to reach the kids that are interested in that, and even just getting some leadership experience and maybe being an officer of them, and learning Robert's rules. That's invaluable. In everything you do, the Robert's rules are very important. So I think that'd be a good skill to teach the younger generation as well.
Absolutely. And I'm a big supporter of the junior branches, just because I've worked with them and seen the wonderful things that it did for my daughter and her friends. So many of her friends started out as awkward 11-year-old girls who didn't really have much confidence in themselves. And by the end of Theta Rho, they were really confident, good leaders. It's such a fantastic experience that we can offer to young people who want to be a part of the order.
Plus, it's a great way to farm members of the lodge that are already trained and already know how to do it. And so it's like perfect to just step right on up to the big lodge after they age out of the junior lodge.
Right.
Yeah,
And a good foundation built.
Yeah. And like Brother Gage said, the Elks Lodge closed before he got the opportunity to join with his father. Think of how wonderful it will be in a few more years when you can have junior branches, and, your daughter can be in Theta Rho, your son can be in junior lodge, and then eventually they make their application to the adult lodge, and you get that wonderful experience of sitting in lodge with your family. It's great. I love it.
Now, I have a question for Gage.
Yes, sir.
So, have you gotten your dad to join the Oddfellows since he's a displaced elk?
Well, sadly, he had passed away in 2016. So.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but it would have been something that he would have been so stoked to have joined. That's for sure. He's one of those guys that, if you seen him 3 times and you needed 10 or 15 bucks, those 3 times you seen him, he'd be right there to give you 10 or 15 bucks if you need it. And, he would always pull over on the side of the road and help you whenever you need.
It's a shirt off your back guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
He's a hard worker. He was in the oil field pretty much his whole life. And so he was really dedicated to that. But yeah, he would have definitely loved to see, Bradyn and I be able to start a lodge up here in Thermop and whatnot. So.
Well, you're definitely starting to build a legacy
For sure.
Not only for yourselves and your family, but your town.
Right. Well, and the good thing about having a small community is everyone knows everybody. So if you were to be able to start a junior lodge per se, and then, you have a daughter and she's got a friend and her parents don't know about the adult lodge, then that kind of brings more people to your main lodge also. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the younger, and if you think about it, you learn your discipline and to help everybody out when you're older or when you're younger from your parents. And if you can have that starting when you're young, even when you're in high school, you're helping out everybody that you see and whatnot, and so that I think is a huge key part. And, if you were able to get a junior lodge going, then kids that don't have anything to do, that gives them something to stay out of trouble and keep them busy and occupied. That's the bad thing about children in Thermopolis is they don't really have anything to do but sit on their phones anymore, So
commit arson by the sound of it.
And maybe there's like a church that has like a meeting space that you could use instead of having to worry about the bakery or something like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And that's kind of one thing too with it being a small community is we're trying to think of community events and stuff that we could do that aren't taken. Like every church in town has a food bank, and every church has a clothing bank, clothing giveaway, or not giveaway, but clothing place you can come
Collection.
get clothes.
Yeah.
Collection. Yeah, there we go. And I mean, so we're trying to reach the other stuff that other organizations aren't doing already.
That's the trouble that my lodge has faced as well, because we're also in a very small town. Our town has about 4,500 people in it, but we're not as isolated probably as you guys are in Wyoming, but we're in the smack dab middle of Illinois in the cornfields for frame of reference. And our community has a very strong Kiwanis and churches and everything. And they take a lot of the kids stuff, like they've got that covered. But so it's taken us some time to kind of figure out where our place is. And like you just mentioned, it's kind of filling in those spaces in between that are the projects that might not be like the sexy projects that are going to get as much attention, or things like that. So it's kind of like, oh, the backpacks for the kids might be the thing that they need, or socks and underwear, or just things like that people might not think about.
School supplies.
Yeah, we always donate every year to the local organization that does the Head Start, and they do the school supply backpacks.
So that was two of the things that we were wanting to focus on was school supplies. And then we have the backpack program here where they get the school and some other organizations feed the kids all throughout the summer too. And they get the truck, and they so basically they said they have everything covered except unloading a truck. I'm like, well, I can unload a truck. That's no problem.
Nice.
Mhm.
And just the original lodge, even Hot Springs County is named Hot Springs because we have the world's largest mineral hot springs.
Oh,
and
nice.
we actually, the spring coming out of the ground, we have a gift of the waters pageant every year. The Indian tribes around here gifted us the water. So our state park is a giant state park, and part of the treaty with the Indian tribes was that there's free access. So the park is free. There has to be a free pool to soak in the mineral water, stuff like that. Well, even as far back as the original lodge in the 1800s, they were super excited about an Oddfellow home here because the mineral water has the healing property, and drinking it and soaking in it. So even the original lodge are focused on elderly. Our whole community is retirement community. So all of the events are retirement oriented and elderly oriented. And I think that's why our children are falling through the cracks here around here. So
that's definitely gives a lot of insight on the community that you're in, because that's an interesting note, that the elderly component where they're drawn to the hot springs because it makes them feel better.
Mhm.
Right. And they used to come out here with when they got sick too, because it's dry. And so a lot of the first people that came to Wyoming were looking for drier climates. So it basically from its founding has been a retirement community. And the Oddfellow home, they were excited that they wanted a mineral pool that was members only could use their mineral pool.
Mhm.
So
I'd be about that.
yeah,
It's really nice, that's for sure.
it is definitely.
Well, this sounds like it would be a good place to take a break and listen to a message from our sponsor, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. If you like bathing, and I sure hope you do, Pig and a Pug has the stuff for you. We'll be right back.
All right, be honest. How much do you spend on coffee every month? $20? $50? $1,500? Well, that's probably not realistic. Anyway, I digress. Where was I? Oh yeah, Pig and a Pug. For the price of one of your not as good as last time lattes, one of your, what is this, 90% milk macchiatos, or about 350 cups of Folgers, you can get yourself some handmade soap. Yeah, handmade. And with the best ingredients and the most attention to detail that you could conceivably ask for. This stuff smells so good, it will align your chakras, send out multiple namastes, and best yet, make you smell like you don't spend the majority of your time these days walking around in your pajamas. Being that we're all home a lot more these days, we might even just take more showers just because we're bored. And it's fine for that too. Smell good whenever you want. Each order is packed with the greatest of care and includes freebies and loads of positivity. Listen, don't start an argument by telling the people that you love or people that you live with that they stink. Just get them a bar of soap, and Robert is your father's brother. So, take a minute, pop over to Etsy or Facebook and look up Pig and a Pug. Just bang in the coupon code THANKYOU24 and you're going to get 24% off your order. Literally, that's all you have to do. Pig and a Pug, Pig and a Pug, Pig and a Pug.
And we're back. Thank you to our sponsors, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. You can check their products out on Facebook and on Etsy. They've got a lot of wonderful bath products. And spring is here, so make sure you grab all those wonderful spring soaps and bath products from Pig and a Pug. We're talking to two of the members of George Sliney Lodge number 26 in Thermopolis, Wyoming, one of the newest lodges in Odd Fellowship. We've got Brother Bradyn Harvey here and Brother Gage Mazer. And I've got a question for both of you. I'd like to hear from both of you on this. How important was it to you that you could get started fairly quickly in Odd Fellowship? Because we've heard stories before from members who have a hard time joining. It takes several months to find somebody. And then they put in an application. They don't hear anything for a couple more months. And then finally someone calls from the lodge. And the process just gets really drawn out, and they don't actually get to do anything. They don't get initiated for 8 months or 10 months or maybe even a year. So it sounds like both of you were really enthusiastic and happy to get going. How important was it to be able to get started on this right away?
I would have to say, for my sake, it was pretty important to join. You know, the what I get out of a lot of the other lodges is that they have a difficult time finding interest for members and keeping their interest. And I think the main way to be able to do that is just communication, really. You know, Bradyn and I, we send probably hundreds of messages to each other daily. And we even have a messaging app. We just use Facebook, and we have all of our members there, so everyone knows what everybody is going and doing and what we have going on. If you miss a meeting, you can kind of get informed on if you have to go help do something and whatnot. And where you're going to lose a lot of the interest is just not having that communication with people. Even if it's just to say, hey, how's it going? Your application is, you know, getting processed. We've looking through it and all of this. Even if you got to send it, you know, once or twice a week, just so they know that you're here, we want your interest and whatnot. Another thing that I think will help a lot is, we discussed this with our last meeting, is if you find someone that's kind of on the edge, just bring them in before the official meeting, and, you know, have that guest time with them, put it in the minutes that they were there. And then when you have your next meeting, they can say, okay, well, we had this visitor, how's this going with their application and whatnot. And just, you know, letting your members know that they have that applicant in. And then another big thing, I guess, is just getting your application to that person of interest and receiving it in time. When I got mine, Bradyn slipped it into my mailbox. I filled it out and had it to him within a week. And, I had my my girlfriend and I actually had our interview with the lodge over Zoom right here, since we weren't able to have contact with them because of COVID. But so we had our interview, I think, within a month of having our application in there. And I think that was mostly just because of the lodge had to meet up and, they had to discuss our applications and whatnot. But luckily it went really fast and smooth with us. And I think we have a pretty good hold on getting our members all together and in line on, if you get an application out, get it back and whatnot. I think we've got one new application that's supposed to be coming in. I know I've given out 2 or 3 applications to people. Luckily, one of them I work with, so him and his wife are trying to think about joining. And another thing that I've kind of thought about, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I even keep a little thing right here with me, the brochure,
Nice.
The OddFellows brochure.
That's right. Always have your applications on
Mhm.
hand.
Yeah,
the worst
exactly.
thing in the world is when somebody says, "Yeah, I'll join," and you're like, I've got one around here somewhere."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because you might not see that person again for a little while.
That's right.
And so, yeah. And then another thing that I think would help a lot is when you introduce yourself and just get that name out there. I'm Gage Mazer. Nice to meet you. I am an Oddfellow Lodge number 26, Thermopolis, Wyoming, and then they go, "Oh, okay, well, what's that?" And you tell them, "Well, it's just a fraternal group and we're, built on helping the community and whatnot." And then if they show some kind of interest, then you can go, "Well, if you're interested, here's an application and a brochure for you. And we'd love to have you, the more the merrier. The more people you can get to help the community out, the better."
Excellent. Now, what
So,
about you, Bradyn? How important was it for you to be able to get started fairly quickly in Odd Fellowship?
So I think it's very important. So one of the big things, kind of to build on what Gage said, when you have somebody interested and you get them an application, I think that shows, one, that you're efficient and you have it together. I think people get tired of meetings because if you go to 3 meetings a week and you start a half hour late and business goes for 3 extra hours, and that's what burns people out. So I think if people know that you're efficient, like, "Oh, I'm interested. Oh, here you go. Bang, boom, you're in." It shows that they're important, I think. So they know that they're important to the organization. They know that the organization is organized and isn't going to waste their time. And that was, I kind of had the same experience after I got in contact with a member. We got an application like in a week or 2, filled it out. I filled it out standing right there, gave it back to him. He took it. They voted on it the next time. We had our interview committee right away. And then we did our initiatory right away. And then, of course, that was in February, so the pandemic hit and everything. But it helped the lodge too. I mean, they were looking for members, and so it helps them out with whatever they're trying to accomplish. It helps the new member out with, you're diving right in, you're getting involved, you're not sitting out and out in the fringes with nothing to do. So we got in efficiently and we got put to work efficiently, which I think is what keeps the excitement up.
So on building on that excitement, obviously you guys have a lot on your plate ahead of you, but as far as like degrees go, have you guys gotten any interest or had any thought about in joining an encampment or even starting one of your own? And same with the canton, with the, knowing that old charter is still existing. Has there been any thought about, pursuing the further degrees of Odd Fellowship yet?
Yeah. So being honest, I don't even know if there is where the encampment here is. So I mean, that's just that's one of them things I'm hoping to learn at Grand Lodge. So one of the things that I've kind of talked to Toby about is we do have that Gifting of the Waters pageant. So, and it's kind of the tribes come in and they do a ritual that the tribes have done for hundreds of years at the pageant, and then they it's kind of a ceremonial refurbishing of the treaty. And I think that that'd be kind of cool to do an encampment degree there, set the tent up in the park.
Yes.
Yes.
And just kind of adopt it. And that would that'd be cool to do. It makes it unique to us, which is always cool. And it incorporates kind of our history and Oddfellow history and the next level. It makes the next level of degrees that much more next level.
Yes. Now, down in California, outside of Wairika, they do what's called the cave degree in August, where they do the second degree in a cave by moonlight. I've never been able to go to that. I'm hoping that maybe one of these years I'll be able to make the trip down there, because it's like a 14-hour drive, I think, from where I'm at in Washington. But those kind of things where you can do the degrees in a natural setting, they are amazing. Another example of that is in Idaho, they used to be able to go out to Dead Horse Cave and do the degrees in Dead Horse Cave. Now,
sounds rad.
Bureau of Land Management shut off access to that, so they can't do it anymore. But those kind of things are so incredibly cool. Another one like that is in Oregon. They have a degree weekend at the Hahn Farm where they go out and they actually have things set up. So when you travel the rough road of the encampment, it's an actual rough road on a farm. So there's some really cool settings for the Oddfellow degrees. I would love to see the encampment degrees done at the state park there, with the real live hot springs. I can completely envision all of that playing out. It would be so amazing.
So
That'd be really cool.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool too. The Indian tribes, they have their ceremonial garb that they all wear, and they do like a full ceremony, and you can sit in the park and watch their ceremony where they thank the water, and then they do their ritual that they have, and then they gift the water to the town with the treaty. So I think it's a good friendship aspect of Odd Fellowship too, where it's literally a treaty. You can't get more friendly than that. So
Yeah. So now that you guys have started your own lodge there in Wyoming, is anybody else in Wyoming planning on starting a new lodge? Have you started a trend?
yeah. So Casper, Wyoming, just got interested in starting a new lodge. They just met with our grand secretary at the Riverton Lodge to do some of their degrees. I haven't met any of them yet. I'm hoping to meet them at Grand Lodge this June. But there is another lodge that is working on reopening their charter.
That is amazing. Congratulations. Wyoming
seems like
to be like the new state for Odd Fellowship. It's Wyoming, down there at the very bottom of the alphabet. After Washington, after West Virginia, after Wisconsin, Wyoming.
Yeah, all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
That makes us easy to find on the website for jurisdictions. You just scroll
Yes, it
all the way to the end.
Yeah.
It is. It's the best. All the way to the bottom.
It's amazing that in a year of what I think many of us were fearing would potentially be the nail in the coffin for many jurisdictions of Oddfellows, that a lot of these places are having folks like you popping up and bringing back a lodge, which would then kind of have that ripple effect. And then hopefully, the Casper Lodge will get going, and hopefully more members will join the other lodges in the area as, you guys get more media attention. And so I just am so just amazed at all the progress that has been made across the continent in this past year, with new lodges just popping up like dandelions. It's
So-
fantastic.
And that the new lodges popping up kind of compounds too. I mean, the Grand Master Wyoming is super excited because he's the first one in 40 years to open a new lodge. And he's the old, yeah. So everybody at every level is excited about it, and that helps their lodges too regain their footing and momentum.
I bet that makes you feel really appreciated.
Yeah, it definitely does.
What's that like?
I'm sure it's a great feeling. One day, Christopher, you too may be appreciated for your service to Odd Fellowship.
We'll see about that. You've seen my service to Odd Fellowship.
We appreciate you, Christopher.
Yes,
Thanks.
we do.
I do what I can.
Now, here's an idea. Since Wyoming is the bustling new hub of Odd Fellowship in the region, you guys need to challenge Colorado and just have your Grand Master write a letter to the Grand Master of Colorado and say, hey, we're chartering new lodges all the time up here in Wyoming. What's your excuse? Get on it.
And we have a pretty good rivalry with them. I mean, we have to be the better square, so.
Exactly.
Superior square.
That's why we're on top if you look at the map.
We are all about exploiting regional rivalries to get more listeners on this show. We're not at all above that. We just get right down into it.
Yeah, just as long as they're not from Oregon.
Oh, the People's Republic of Oregon. No, I actually have to be nice to the jurisdiction of Oregon because this week I am actually participating in their Grand Encampment and Grand Lodge sessions as musician. So I've got to be nice to Oregon. I actually spent quite a bit of time on the phone with the outgoing Grand Master of Oregon last night. So any other time it's game on for the rivalry with Oregon, especially when UW plays U of O in football or something like that. But when it comes to Odd Fellowship, we work together and we support each other's jurisdiction, even if Washington is the superior state. I mean, I can't help that. And now we just lost our 2 listeners down in Portland.
Good riddance.
See, Oregon and Washington are just wannabe square states. They're almost square, but not quite.
There's that
they got a couple
part.
roughly edges too. It
That's
kind of
right.
spoils it. Yeah.
Once they smooth out their edges, they'll be all right.
Yeah.
And then poor Idaho, it's skinny at the top. It only takes an hour to drive across Idaho at the top. But in the bottom, driving across the bottom of Idaho, it feels like 3 days to get across that.
Yeah.
It just goes on forever.
We have an hour just to Walmart here, so.
Wow.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, I know a little bit about what that's like because my mom actually lives in the northeastern corner of Nevada, right along Interstate 80, and she's got an hour to go over to the Walmart in Elko. So if she wants something that isn't at the local miniature grocery store / hardware store / auto parts store, she's actually got to head an hour west on I-80 to get it.
Damn.
Bad thing
You
is,
better hope Woolworths has it then, huh?
Yeah.
The old five and dime.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I've noticed that you've done in your jurisdiction, which I'm guessing it has probably fostered a lot of positive communication, is Wyoming has a new website.
Woohoo!
You want to tell us something about that?
Yeah, so I got a hold of the Grand Secretary and I asked about if he would be okay with us making a website, and he said, yeah, sure, go for it. So I made WyomingIOOF.com. I have contact information on there for the lodges around the state. I have kind of I'm working on a history. I'm trying to compile as much Wyoming history on there as I can. We're trying to get events from various lodges so people know what fundraisers are going on and what events are going on and what the lodges are doing in the communities and why Odd Fellowship is important in our state. And so we're trying to get we're trying to consolidate all of Wyoming Odd Fellowship onto this website, which I think would be extremely helpful, especially more and more. First thing you do is Google it. So,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm actually looking at it now, and it looks very well put together and very easy to navigate. So thank you for that.
Plus, I now know that there's a lodge in Jackson, Wyoming. So next time I go visit the Grand Tetons, I can drop in for a visitation. And honestly, as someone who normally, non-pandemic times, is on the road traveling a lot, I love being able to look up and find where there are lodges, because I love visiting lodges when I'm on the road and I'm traveling. I love doing that. And the lodges that I visit love having a visitor come in. So it's wonderful that you've been able to put this together for Wyoming. Now, there's a jurisdiction just on your southwestern corner. I don't want to name them, but it does begin with a vowel. So sometimes they can be a little hard to contact. So just give them a little poke over there and say, hey, answer your email. It really does benefit when you've got a website that's functional, when people in the community can see what you're doing. I liken it to this. In your town, if your Oddfellows Hall is bright, well-maintained, it has good signage so that everybody knows it's an Oddfellows Hall, that is how you represent yourself to the community, so they can find out more about you and become involved. A website is the same thing. A website shows you, this is the lodge, this is what we do, and this is how you get in touch with us. And that is so important as we go forward, because the days of shopping at Sears and Roebuck and looking things up in the phone book are over. They're done. They're gone. Nowadays, we go to the web to look things up, and we buy it from a major internet retailer. So it's not like the days when you'd go downtown to the general store and buy things on Main Street. So our lodges have to adapt to that new world and make sure that the rest of the world can find them. So I am so impressed with the job you did of this new website for Wyoming, even though once the guys in Casper get their charter, you're going to have to add that and edit the website, but it'll be totally worth it at that point.
So that was kind of one of the things, one of my inspirations to build a website. So I do jujitsu, and I travel all over the place, and everywhere I go, if I stay the night, I'm trying to find a jujitsu gym.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to incorporate that, where same thing, when I'm traveling around, I want to be able to see if there's a lodge, and I want other people traveling around to be able to find us. And I also, one of the things I wanted that was important to me on the website was I wanted all the stuff that I was looking for. That's why I have the history. That's why I have contact. That's why I want pictures of lodges. I want all that kind of stuff, because that was the stuff that was important to me when I was trying to join and when I was doing my own research. So I just wanted to make it easier for anybody else following behind.
Well, and I know that Wyoming has had a couple of notable Oddfellows. In recent years, Jim Wygant, he was on the Drawing of Seats committee at Sovereign Grand Lodge, and very highly regarded at Sovereign Grand Lodge for doing that and doing such an excellent job of it for so many years. And then about 100 years ago, James Kuykendall, I think? He was an Odd Fellow from Wyoming who served as Sovereign Grand Master. I see Brother Gage is holding something up. What is that, brother? Tell us about it.
So that is the a coin from the Sovereign Grand Lodge, and it's actually got William Kuykendall's grandsire name. Yeah,
nice.
From Atlanta, Georgia, in 1910, when Wyoming had first started, and then it's got a name of all the representatives on the back of Wyoming also.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I picked that up on eBay. I said, there's no way somebody's getting this thing for $10.
That's going home to Wyoming.
Yeah, I brought that back to Wyoming for $15. I said, that's coming back to me.
Nice.
Yeah, it's got one of my favorite trinkets.
And the addiction begins.
Right.
One of my favorites is this pendant, which was on the Grand Lodge of Washington badges in 1919 for our centennial year. 1919 Grand Lodge was held in Seattle, and they have Seattle FLT 1819, 1919, Thomas Wilde, and then underneath they have a little vignette portrait here of our Grand Master that year. And that Grand Master in 1919 was F.C. Graham. And I mention that because his past Grand Master jewel was returned to the Grand Lodge after he passed away. 50 years later, in 1969, it was presented to past Grand Master Marshall Miller. And then another 50 years later, in 2019, Marshall presented it to me. So that's the past Grand Master jewel that I have, and it was first worn by past Grand Master F.C. Graham in 1919.
I love that living history aspect of our organization. And I do get a lot of emails from people cleaning out, boxes of stuff they've inherited or whatever, and saying like, hey, I found this pin, or hey, I found this ring and I don't want it. Like, who do I give it to? What do I do with it? And I always encourage them, like, if you're wanting to donate it back to the organization, please do so, because we'll actually put the stuff back into commission again. We use all our stuff. We use the old stuff because it's all we got pretty much. So it's anything, if there's anybody listening and you got a box you inherited from great uncle Joe or whatever, then you never had any contact with them and you're like, I don't want this stuff, donate it back to your Grand Lodge. They will use it.
So I got a hold of the Grand Secretary, and he went through the storage units of old minute books and found the original Thermopolis minute books. So I have right next to me all of the minute books from 1898 all the way to 1980.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That you are so fortunate to have that. So many other historic collections, things have been lost, destroyed in floods or fires, all sorts of problems. I know when we talked to Justin,
Or just thrown in the dumpster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's always the first thing that goes too, are the minute books.
Yeah, they're like, nobody wants this crap except for the people of the lodge. That's the only people who really care.
So it's really cool too, just flipping through the pages. I mean, so when I was researching George Sliney, obviously I came across other members' names, and I always jot them down so I can do future research. Well, there was a guy, I can't remember his first name, Ulrich is his last name, and he had a jewelry store between the Oddfellow Lodge and the Mason Lodge, and he made the regalia and rings and all kinds of stuff for the Masons and the Oddfellows.
Oh, he had a nice little operation going there.
Yeah, he did. Well, flipping through the minute books, I found his membership card. So there's all this cool Thermopolis history, Wyoming history, and Oddfellow history in these books. And I could spend all day reading old minute books. So
yeah.
I know the feeling. It is so tempting. You're at the lodge one morning doing some work or something like that. I think I'll just crack the minute book. What was the lodge doing in 1934? Oh, they collected $2.18 for the food drive then. And it's this wonderful time capsule to see what happened. It's also a reminder to your secretaries now. You're not just keeping the minutes, you are writing the first rough draft of history when you're doing that. Somebody in 50 years could be looking back and saying, what was the lodge doing right after the pandemic? What was it like in 2021? What was going on at that time? So that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that the minutes are not just for now and for immediate future reference. They are the history book of your lodge.
Yeah,
Make sure you write legibly.
Yes.
Yeah. Growing up, I always wanted to be a primary source. So.
Oh, now that was spoken like a true historian right there. Well, brothers, I want to thank both of you for joining us here on the podcast, and also for the fantastic work you are doing for Odd Fellowship in Wyoming. You are going to have the new powerful jurisdiction here if you keep with all of these new lodges opening up. Colorado had better look out. They're going to end up second to Wyoming here pretty soon.
Our 600,000 people in Wyoming are keeping up.
That's right. Hey, per capita, you've probably got more Odd Fellows in Wyoming than Colorado.
That's right. We got a 10% membership.
That's right. Well, that takes us now to our Odd Podge, which is where everybody gets to share something that they want to share. Doesn't have to be lodge related. I'm going to go first. I think most folks listening know that I'm the sovereign grand musician for the Odd Fellows. And one of the things that I've been working on during the pandemic is improving the state of our music. So as a part of that, I've been working on new recordings of our opening and closing odes for the lodge, for the Rebeccas, and for our encampments. And I am getting close to finishing that project. Just last week, I went and got all of the Rebecca music recorded. So now it's just a matter of mixing it all. And then hopefully by the beginning of June, I'll have it ready for distribution. And I will be sure and send out emails to all of our grand secretaries, letting them know that new recordings of the odes will be available. It is just over the horizon. It is going to happen very soon. So after that, there will be no reason not to sing the opening and closing odes in Lodge. You can put it on your phone. You can burn a CD of it. You can maybe even go on eBay and find an old 78 recording of it and play it on your Lodge Victrola if that's the newest technology your Lodge has. But we will have new recordings of the odes coming out soon. So that's my selection for the Odd Podge. Who wants to share something next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
So on Sunday, I believe, is when Michael Greenziger is installed as the Grand Master of California.
That is correct.
And he and I have been working on the Oddfellows primer for the last going on a year and a half now, and longer for him. And so we are finally entering the end stages of the book project. So now that he'll get his installation and all that stuff taken care of, we'll be able to wrap up the last little bits of it. And I don't have an exact date yet because we still have to do the layout, but we're having one of my lodge sisters is actually going to be doing the layout for us. And so we're getting very close. Progress is happening and the end of the tunnel is in sight, but I still don't have an exact date. But keep checking it out on oddfellowsprimer.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at oddfellowsprimer.
Just like they say in the movies, coming summer 2021.
Yes.
All right, brothers. Who else has something they'd like to share for the Odd Podge?
We just had our fourth kid 3 weeks ago.
Hey,
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's besides besides all the work we're doing in Odd Fellowship, I got 4 kids to deal with too, so that's fun. But yeah, she's Cleo Marie. She's healthy as can be. All my kids are named after cars, so we had to go with a Renault Clio for our fourth daughter.
There you go.
Yeah,
you don't have a child named LeSabre or Park Avenue, do you?
No,
proper Buick name.
That's right.
Back playing with Charger.
we are running out of good names, so they might be coming.
Beetle.
Little did Bradyn know he was going to already start the junior lodge.
Yes.
Yeah, we have Bentley, Lizzie after the Tin Lizzie Model A, Lincoln, and Cleo. So,
and also appropriate because, of course, like almost 100 years ago, the Lincoln Highway ran through Wyoming.
That's right, and that had some pretty cool. They actually I think it was Motor Magazine when cars were first coming out. Wrote a letter to George Sliney asking him to protect the Lincoln Highway, and because everybody on the coasts thought that we were still being raided every night, and so he joked and he said, "I'll ask the Indian chiefs to protect the highway from you."
Yeah.
So
All right, Brother Gage, what do you have to share with us?
Well, one major thing that's been pretty important to me is when my dad passed away, my mom was in really bad health and she had been having a really bad drinking problem. And one thing that I'm really grateful of is that she was gotten back on a straight path, and now she actually is the treasurer for the church that we go to. And so that's one good thing that I've really been grateful of these past couple of years, is her sobriety and whatnot. So
Big ups to mom.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Christopher, you're up last. What do you have to share on the Odd Podge?
So I think everyone knows that one of my favorite things to do is check out other lodges, ones that I haven't been to before. And I could be a pretty tough critic, but at the same time, also very understanding. Just the other day, I happened to visit a lodge in Buckley, Washington.
In Buckley, of all places. How fortuitous.
In Buckley, of all places. I just so happened to be in the town of Buckley, Washington. And I went to this quaint little lodge. Actually, it doesn't look very little at all. Absolutely beautiful building. And just stopped in there on a random day. And I swear the bathrooms were so clean that you would think that the queen was showing up.
Yeah.
And I just want to say how much I appreciate that.
Well, speaking as an associate member of that lodge, we take our bathrooms so seriously that we actually have a Sovereign Grand Lodge officer clean them.
Wow.
Only the best. Only
Yeah.
the best.
Absolutely. We make sure that those bathrooms are sparkling and beautiful because, when our
You knew I was coming.
Rebecca sisters are there, we have to show them the respect that only a clean toilet and a working sink can show. Oh, you laugh, but I visited
I laugh
many,
because it's true.
many derelict
It is.
lodge halls where, Fred was going to fix that one of these days. And has anybody seen Fred's pipe wrench? We'll get around to that, pretty soon here. No, just toss it in the bucket for now. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, it's important to keep your hall in good condition, including the bathrooms.
Especially the bathrooms.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Bradyn, Brother Gage. It is fantastic to have you as Brother Oddfellows, and just wonderful all of the work and effort that you're putting in. Now, when the new lodge gets going in Casper, and you get in touch with them, make sure you send them our way because we'll want to talk to them as well, because we're pretty much the #1 media stop now for all the new lodges in Odd Fellowship. They all have to talk to us.
I was gonna say, or we'll find them.
Yeah.
The one huge benefit of the podcast, this one and Modern Goat Rider in Wyoming, is you can't go anywhere for less than a half-hour trip. So podcasts are great mediums here.
Exactly.
Ah.
Yep. Well, speaking of Modern Goat Rider, all of us here at the Three Links Oddcast want to welcome their new co-host, Tara Zajac. She's joining Modern Goat Rider, so those of you who are subscribed to both podcasts, you will soon be hearing her talking about Odd Fellowship with Brother Billy while Brother Josh is on hiatus. So welcome to Sister Tara. She's going to do a great job on the Modern Goat Rider. And speaking of us, our next episode, we are going across the pond. We're going to be talking with Brother Owen Snowden, who's over in the UK. He's in Wales, and he's going to be talking to us about some of the history of Odd Fellowship in the UK. Because I think everybody knows that Odd Fellowship sprang forth from the UK and went out and spread all around the world. So he's going to share some of his research and experience with all of us here on the Three Links Oddcast. Well, thank you very much, brothers, for joining us, and thank you, everyone, for listening.